we begin, I would like to know if you actually know what a strong-willed child is. So for you, what is a strong-willed child? So for some, this might be someone who is vulnerable, maybe someone who is very passionate, someone is very independent. Well, we will be using Mentimeter for today. So if you would like to join the discussion, kindly join us using the link here. Yes, you may see this one, or you can scan also the QR code, or also you may join by going to menti.com and entering 38756608. There, I will be there. We will be having 3 engagement questions over there where you may upload your answers to prompt questions that will make our discussion a little more interesting and flavorful, as we have a very diverse audience right now. So for my experiences and what I'm about to share today might be a one-sided perspective with how to handle strong-willed children. And of course, as an educator, I'm also interested in knowing what you have to say about what we're talking about tonight. So if you want to join the discussion, go to mentimeter.com and enter the voting code 38756608. And if you will see there, wait, let me share the link in the chat box for those who don't know how to how do you say this? Don't know how to scan, because I know not everyone is good at electronics. Even I am a little bit confused the first time this was introduced to me. So I will put the link in the chat box so we can continue with the first prompt in Mentimeter. There you go. You can click that link, or you may enter or scan the code as a while ago. So here our first prompt is, oh, I see there are already questions. There are already answers, I mean. Let's see. Let me share to you and let's see what everyone has to say about the question. So our first question is, describe a strong-willed child. Oh, see, there's already an instruction here. I see 5 people are already on the Mentimeter. You may join, you may also put it in the chat box. How do you understand what a strong-willed child is? Is it someone that's very challenging to you? Is this someone that you've actually met in your classroom? Is this your child, perhaps? Oh, I see there are some answers already. Assertive, yes, most definitely. A strong-willed child is very independent and would want to know the effects of their actions. Yes, a strong-willed child is very tempered, as they are very emotional, because they already have a view of what they want to happen. And sometimes it makes them a little flustered not to get that specific view, because they are very strong-willed. They have very high emotional quotient. So we have to learn how to gauge with that with them. They're very passionate, they're smart. Yes, they can be very tough, especially when we are handling them from a group basis. Of course, it's already hard to handle strong-willed children on their own. But when you encounter them inside a classroom setting or inside a group setting, well, it could be a little bit harder, as you have to focus on them, right? Okay, so keep those answers going. Thank you so much for joining the Mentimeter with me. All right, so let's just have a quick reminder that what's important about parenting is more than just wanting our kids to listen and obey. Of course, we've been taught that I mean, since very young, as children, we've been taught that we should be listening and obeying our elders, right? As a sign of respect, respecting their age, respecting their education, respecting the path that they already walked. But is that really how we want our children to go through childhood and growing up, just listening and obeying without having their own critical thinking and their own agency and in deciding with what they want to do? Of course, we have to be very progressive about how we parent our children as educators, as parents, as adults in the community. We should let them steer their own path independently. But how do we do that without letting them go astray? Because sometimes they are children. They're very inexperienced about the world, so they don't know much about the consequences, right? They don't know that they will get hurt. For example, a simple example, when you're driving a car and you want them to ride with the seatbelt on, sometimes they would be fussy. They don't want to wear that seatbelt because they don't want to. They feel safe already in the car. Like, hello, mom, dad, hello, teacher. This bus is safe. I'm with you. We are safe. There are traffic lights. I don't need the seatbelt. It's suffocating me. That might be part of their reasoning, and it is reasonable, right? It is kind of suffocating to have a seatbelt or be in a child seat or be in a designated seat instead of just moving to different seats, being free, choosing your seat if it is an aircraft or a bus or a ship. But how do we teach them that wearing seatbelt is actually good? I mean, how do we let them follow this rule without making them feel that we're imposing a rule on them? With, making them have the agency to choose that, oh, I should be wearing a seatbelt because this. How do we do that? With strong-willed children, the first thing we do is we teach our children how to assess risks. So here you go. Let's take a different example. For example, your child is in the playground, they're being too rowdy. Not all playgrounds have mats or have cushioned paddings on the floor. Not all playgrounds are very children safe, because not all local government units can provide that kind of playground. I mean, for example, here I currently live in Singapore, and the playgrounds here are quite okay. They have paddings. The slides are actually children safe. But back in the Philippines, while I was growing up, the playgrounds were just on cement. They were just on cement. And then our playgrounds were just made of metal and screws. And that was not really very safe, because when you fall from the swing, there's no cushioning to catch you. So the parenting in Philippines is very much different from Singapore. Because in Philippines, it might be, hey, stop, 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 stop. Everything has to be a stop, has to be slowed down, has to be one at a time. Then the children learn how to follow because they're a bit scared, right? But here in Singapore, they just let their children run because they know that it is safe. But what if in your neighborhood, your pavement in your playground is not that safe? You will be afraid that your child will get bruised, will get scabbed while playing. They might fall, they might bump their head, and this will also be a hassle to you. Once they start crying, they will have a tantrum in the playground. They might be forced to be physical with their friends, because of course, if they're hurt, they will hurt other people also. If they don't know how to manage their own emotions, they might start pushing their friends, might start shouting, might start doing these unwanted, unnecessary behaviors. So how do we handle, for example, with this? Well, the first thing you do is, before you actually go to the playground, you have to prepare your child by conditioning them on expectations and behaviors. For example, for the playground, you have to tell your child, hello, we're in this neighborhood. I know we're going to a playground. And before we go, I'm just going to tell you that the playground that we're going to go to doesn't have any rubberized mats on the floor, doesn't have any much grass. So if you fall on a hard surface, what do you think will happen there? You give them the agency to answer you on what might happen if they actually fall. So they might answer, hey, if I fall, then that might hurt, right? Then you will say, exactly. So what will you do so that you will not fall? So there, you start to process them, to let them use their own critical thinking skills and let them feel that they have the mastery of their destiny, if I would say. So they will think, hey, I feel so independent. I thought of this, I thought that before going to the playground, I'm not going to run as much. So there, just then, before going out of your house, you were already able to impose a rule not to be too rowdy when you go to the playground. And it's not even imposed straightforwardly. So the child doesn't feel like he's under you. The child feels like it is a partnership between the parent and the child, between the teacher and the child, between the adult and the child. So he doesn't, or she doesn't, they won't feel like they want to outsmart you, because some children really want to do that, huh? They want to, I know better than you. I've been in this playground before. I think I know my way better than you. I mean, I'm a kid. You're an adult. You don't really play in the playground, so it's my rules, right? So you just let them have this agency to critically think by themselves and prepare on their own. So you prepare these guidelines. So for example, the playground might have, it may be pet friendly. Of course, with pet friendly parks, there is still a caution with children petting dogs, because not all children are very trained to not touch dogs. They might think, oh, it's so cute, I want to touch the dog. Okay, then if you know that if the playground is pet friendly, then you include that before going to the playground. You will say, in the playground, we might see some dogs, but these are dogs that barely know us. They don't know us. For example, if you are a dog, my child, would you want to be touched by someone you don't know? What if a stranger touches you? And then the child might say, ew, I don't know that person. Then I might push the person, or I might shout. Then you can say, that's exactly what might happen with the dog. It might push you, but it doesn't know how to push. What does the dog do? It doesn't have any arms, right? Then they might say the dog might bite. Then what should we do if we see even very, very cute dogs, very, very cute puppies? Would we touch them immediately, or would we ask first? Yeah, so you give them options on what to do instead of actually imposing a rule on them. So they feel that they have this independence, that they actually chose to do this, instead of feeling like they are pressured or forced to do a rule. So you invite your child to use their critical thinking skills to understand these expectations. Of course, you have to level it down for the younger ones. It might be a very long discussion. So this can actually apply to even vacations or field trips. Months before the vacation or the field trip, you might want to start conditioning your child on the expected behaviors that would happen, expected behaviors and expectations that would happen on the trip, so that it 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 won't be a passing discussion. So you do it every day, little at a time. You can introduce stories. You can introduce you can start with the game. For example, you're going to the zoo. Well, sometimes the zoos they can be a little progressive by not putting all animals in the cage, right? And then if you're going to go there and you know that this is one of the perks in that zoo, well, you can actually start conditioning your children, training them on what might happen if they do certain things. And you let them decide on their own what might be the best option for them not to get hurt. Because as children, they already know that they don't want to be hurt. They already know that they don't want to have pain. In Singapore, we say, don't want pain, pain. No pain. Because if they have pain, then they will cry. Crying is a very tedious activity for children. They get so tired, they get so sleepy. And when you're sleepy, you cannot play anymore. Then you can also explain that one to them. All right, that's for before. Now, while they're at the playground, let's go back to that example. While they are at the playground, of course they are children, so they might still forget. And how would you address it if you see your child acting out in a way that you did not really talk about? So you should be able to address your concerns in a very non-threatening manner. So I know this has been involuntary response. Even I did this. Even sometimes I do this. Like, if you're not gonna behave, I'm going already. If you're gonna run, okay, bye-bye playground. See, it's very threatening. It doesn't build a connection with your child that they feel they can trust you. They can feel that they can brainstorm with you. Like, hey, so they won't, instead of showing you the behavior, they might start doing it in secret. And if your children does risky play in secret and you don't really know it, they're hiding it from you, then how are you to protect them? So you have to build this connection, build this communication response with your child that they won't feel threatened when you call them out. So for example, you see them running, and there is a risk. There is a risk of danger. Like, for example, the playground is just at the corner of the street, and there's an avenue, two avenues going. And if they run and they are mindlessly running because they're very passionate, they're just playful, it's risky play. You let them play with their own independence, and there's a risk of them being in an accident. Then that's where you step in. You have to say, I can see your emotions are getting really high, your energy is really getting high. If you cannot control your running, if you're going to mindlessly run and bump into people and things, we're going to have to sit down first and relax. Take a breather for 2 minutes, and then when you're relaxed, you can go again. That's a boundary. They would know that it's a boundary and it's not meaningless. It's not a meaningless threat that, hey, running, okay, 5 minutes going, and then you're not really gonna do it. So they won't feel that it's true. They won't feel that it's true. They say, yeah, it's just threatening me. We're not going home. We have nothing to do at home anyway. Run, 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 run. And it's gonna be a stressful power play for the both of you, because the child will be taunting you and you'll be threatening the child. And it's just a cycle that we don't want to be part of. We just want for our children to be called out, to feel safe to be called out, not to feel threatened, to have this lovely communication where they can build trust and a safe space. So if they have this, even if they're doing risky play, they will be able to share to you if they want to try something new. Children that are comfortable are actually way better than children who are scared and just following rules. Because if someone's comfortable, they're like drunk adults. I don't know if you've heard this quote from somewhere, but they're like drunk adults, right? So they just want, for example, they see a rock. Hey mom, look, a rock, I want to lick it. Then they lick it. Right? So it would be better for you to know that your child is actually licking stuff, instead of your child hiding it, and then days later it would have a sickness and you won't know where it's from. And then your child will keep on denying or might have forgotten already, all because they're already scared of you. So it's not really a good, healthy relationship. So we have to start this safe space with our children. All right, we have another discussion for mentee. Let me see if some of you have joined. Wow, 18 answers from the prompt a while ago. Okay, let me see. We have a different prompt for the next one. Oh, okay, for a while. All right, sorry. Let me let me reshare this one. Oh, there. I'm so happy that everyone is participating for with this Mentimeter today. All right, here's another question for you. When these kinds of events happen, what have you been finding yourself saying? Do you say, listen to me? Or do you ask them, how can I help? These are very two valid reactions to different situations with children. And there isn't really a right or wrong answer, because sometimes being assertive is okay. Sometimes how can I help doesn't really help when they're already at risk of being in an unsafe environment. So you have to catch their attention, right? So what do you usually catch yourself say? Do you be assertive, saying you listen to me? Or do you ask them first, how can I help? Well, sometimes, more often than not, we are very tempted to be assertive and say, hey, you listen to me. If you don't stop, you're going to end up scabs going home and we'll all be bloody and we're going to have you bandaged. You go to school having all bandaged and everyone will laugh at you. See, it's a way of threatening the children and making them feel shame and guilt and having them be controlled be controlled in that manner. Well, we were taught that guilt is an okay way to make children obey. Like, it's a way to teach children how to be remorseful. But that one is on a different for a different discussion on a different day. But using shame and guilt to make children obey isn't really the best way to teach them how to feel sorry, how to feel respect. That's not the way. Shaming and guilting children by being one-sidedly assertive is not really the way of making them healthily know and healthily feel that emotion. And to that, I'm going to share that it should not be a power struggle to create rules for your child. As I said a while ago, it should be a two-way street, because, well, when you start arguing with your child, you just get sucked into an argument that isn't really worth fighting for, because you're both aggravated already, you're both frustrated, your child gets angry with you, and you aren't likely able to accomplish anything. You won't be able to set rules, you won't be able to set boundaries, there won't be any routine, and your child just feels hurt. And the hurt child is very difficult to manage. Once they start feeling resentful, there's a lot to unpack with that. So let's not engage into power struggles like, I said so, or I'm the parent, you listen to me, or you're just a little kid, you don't know anything about the world. So you follow what I say. That's a power struggle. That's inviting a power struggle. When you find yourself, here's a quick tip. When you're finding yourself in a power struggle with your child, you just pause. You let them know, hey, my emotions are getting really heightened right now. Give me a minute or two to compose myself. This is not the way I want to talk to you. There, you memorize that prompt. This is not the way I want to talk to you. I know you want to shout at me too. I know that's how you want to relieve your stress the way you feel with me. But this is not the way we should be talking as an adult and a child. We are partners in this. I'm not trying to control you, and I will not control you. But I will not let you talk to me in this way. You have to let them know when they're starting to be disrespectful. Of course, this is a strong-willed child. Sometimes they can be very passionate with what they want. They can be very emotional. They have their own way already, but that does not mean that we will let them talk to us in a very disrespectful way. So when you find yourself in a situation where your child is getting disrespectful, then you have to stop them. Like, you know what? Let's stop it here. I can feel like our emotions are too high. It's the same with handling a relationship with someone else. You don't just shout with your partner, right? It's the same way with children. You don't shout with your child. You have to stop. Okay, this is not the way I want our conversation to go. Give us 2 minutes to breathe, or maybe even longer than 2 minutes. Can we stop the conversation here? If they're a little bit older, for example, they're already, for example, 12, of course, they have harder time to manage their emotions. So when they're already 12 and you find yourself in an argument, you can tell yourself, hey, let's pause. Let's put it away first. Let's go out. Maybe let's get some sun. Maybe let's walk the dog. Let's go to the mall. Let's talk about something else. And when we start feeling better, we have to talk about it again. So it's not as if we're sweeping it under the rug. It's just more of a pause so that you can remind yourself that you can save your face and your child's face too. They don't have to remember this argument like this when they grow up. They don't have to feel resentful about not having their way, about mom wanting them to be safe. Like it's not supposed to be a bummer. It's not supposed to be a killjoy. It's supposed to be a two-way street with them. So you try empathizing with them first, fulfilling first the emotional need that they want, and then once you're all settled, then you go back to the discussion, and that's how you avoid a power struggle with your child. All right. How else do we want to parent our strong-willed child? So as I said a while ago, how you ask matters. How you ask before, how you ask during what's happening, it matters to the child because this is something that they will remember. How you talk to them will become their inner voice. So how you ask, how you talk to them matter. So being a parent doesn't mean that you create a world or you become the engineer of your child's world. Like this is the world you live in and these are the rules. So then the child becomes like, they're just living in a story. And once they're out of that narrative, they will become so lost. They won't know. This is not what mom prepared me for. This is not what dad prepared me for. And then they will be baffled with how the world works because while they were growing up, they were caged in already. Even if they were free to explore, they were caged in already in some sort of reality that mom and dad and teacher built for them. So on the contrary, we have to support the environment that they actually have already. And that will enable them to blossom in their own unique way. So just with those two steps, preparing them before and respectfully catching them during, And then if there is an argument or a disconnect, you have to talk about it after. So there you go. How you do this process matters with your child, because when you do, I mean, we're only people. So in the future, you might also, your child might also ask something from you. And how you do this right now will also be the way that your child will be asking you in the future. So if you are going to be one-sided, assertive, very aggressive in pointing out the mistakes that your child is doing, when they get a little bit older, when they start going through the teenage phase, they will do the same process you do with them right now in the future. Then it will be a little more difficult to unpack, because they already have different layers on how they feel, how they understand situations, how they process situations in their mind. See? So it really matters on how you talk and how you process, even children as young as 5. There you go. And with asking nicely and differently, very progressively, learning how to communicate when things are going well is also important. So you have to let them know, even if things went well today, it is still okay to process your child over what happened. You can tell them like, hey, I noticed that today we didn't have to remind you in the playground. You were able to control your for example, your loud voice, because some children will be screaming and shouting. And if they're able to control that, if that is a very disruptive behavior, of course, it can be a, a concern for the neighbors. But if it's not, then it is. But if it is, then, and your child is able to control himself, you can tell them that, hey, good job today. You were able to control. Were you controlling yourself? Were you aware with your voice and in your movement? You were not hurt today because you were very attentive. Yeah, you give them these adjectives that are grounded to truth. So don't just tell them very good or like way to go or like amazing. You tell them why they're amazing. You're so amazing because I didn't have to hold your hand, but you were walking side by side next to me. You didn't run away. Or there were dogs, and we did talk about it before, and you were able to control yourself, and you asked the pet owner if you could touch. And I didn't have to say it to you. That's so amazing. You remembered. You remembered what you have to do, and now I trust you. You can tell your child that you trust them. You're proud of them, but of course you have to tell them why. So by communicating openly and honestly and in this manner, your children will know the process and imitate it with their peers, with you when they're older, and with their inner self as they are growing up. So they will also be able to validate themselves. They'll say, hey, I remembered, then I must be smart. And children thinking these good attributes, actually they can make it into reality because they're still children. So how they feel about themselves, how they think the world perceives them is how they will be. So if you make your child feel like they're a bad person, then maybe growing up they would feel like they're scared to do these decisions, even small decisions by themselves. Am I going out because I need to buy, for example, pancake mix? Or should I just stay inside and wait? Because this is not a process that has been taught before. See? So this process of validating oneself, having a process, discipline, preparing before the situation, post-processing after the situation, it will be a process that your child will do with themselves. All right, and the last, wow, people have answered already. The last prompt in our Mentimeter. how do you feel about these things? How do you feel about your child making mistakes? About rules and routines, about parent-child partnerships? Well, I'm glad to know that most feel like this is a need. Yeah, your child making mistakes is a need, so that they know how to regulate themselves when they catch themselves making a mistake. Because if you scaffold them all the time and they always get 100% perfect score, of course, with your help, of course, that's good. They will feel good about themselves. But if they don't have experience of making mistakes, once they are, or once they do make mistakes, they might not be able to handle it. Because some children start becoming perfectionists only when the adults around them are conditioning them to be a perfectionist. If that's the behavior that they were taught to, then that's also the behavior that they will do. So it's okay. So if it's okay for your child to make mistakes, as long as their mistakes are not life-threatening, non-disruptive to others, and not harmful to themselves. So if it's just, for example, they're gonna spill the milk in the kitchen, it's fine. Let them spill the milk. But if they're going to break the glass into a million pieces, well, that's already unsafe, right? Set the boundary. Not by hey, 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 not by shouting like that, right? Because they will be startled. They become startled and they will feel, all those things. So as we talked a while ago, make a boundary, be firm, but let your child make mistakes. Now, rules and routines are very important actually. As young as 6 months, actually, you can impose rules and routines already. Did you know that? As young as 6 months, they can already understand. For example, when you're breastfeeding and your child, if you do have a child, if you've experienced breastfeeding, they do start biting already. And at this age, at 6 months, they might start biting, maybe to soothe their teething. You can actually train them not to bite. Very cool, right? And it's just all because of rules and routines. So you start them young and you follow through. You change it based on their personality as well as they're growing up. And as mentioned a while ago, we don't impose the rules. You let them process themselves and think of the rules by themselves. It might be tedious, but it creates a very healthy bond as a partnership between you and the child. And that's for the last one, parent-child partnerships. It's very important to still know their point of view, to still know how they think about the situation, just so you have an understanding of how they process things, how they think about things, how they understand the world, because this will also help you in the future in how to advise them if something goes wrong. This will also give you an idea of how they do decisions when they're, for example, away from you. So when you cannot see them, you have an idea of how they will react to situations. And lastly, here you go. Let me just share this one. Never use shame and guilt for misbehavior. So don't create an environment where your children feel like they're being punished for not following the rules. We've been taught that a little shame isn't so bad, as it forces our children to obey. However, teaching children how to be remorseful will build a healthier character to guide their morality as they grow older. So you just provide these questions and trust your child that they will be able to make the right decision. I know it's hard to give this, this heavy responsibility with our children, but trusting that they're strong-willed, that means they're smart, that means they have a plan, that means they're passionate, then that means they already have a way of thinking about things, right? So we should not turn everything backwards. by shaming them and guilting them for knowing what they want, right? We shouldn't shame our children for knowing what they want. Rather, we should help them process what they want. Set boundaries, set rules, help them set a plan without imposing this pathway that you envision for them. Just as long as they're safe and they're progressing through the different levels of childhood, it is okay. So we let them explore the world and guide them. And lastly, I want to share to you that strong-willed children are experiential learners. It's more effective to let them learn through experience instead of trying to control them. And then aside from constant routine and rules, offer choices. Because strong-willed kids aren't just being difficult. If they're forced, if they feel like they're forced to submit, they feel that their integrity is compromised. Like, I'm not having my way. I'm not having my way. I feel so uncomfortable. I want to do something else. Then it just goes away. If they're allowed to choose, if you give them routine and rules and offer choices, they would love to choose and cooperate. And of course, everyone just wants to raise a responsible, considerate, cooperative child to do the right thing, who does the right thing, even when it's hard. But that doesn't really imply obedience. What implies doing the right thing is because you want to do the right thing, right? Being a morally good person isn't always following what you're told, doing as you're told. It's knowing how to critically think so you can find your way into knowing what is good, right? So there. If you have questions about my presentations, we still have 10 minutes. I would entertain questions in the chat box, or you could also raise your hand. That's the end of the presentation for me. Thank you so much for following through and being participative in the Mentimeter.
Very phenomenal, Miss Childre Jimenez. I'm very, very happy. I personally have been in education, teaching children for over 30 years, and believe it or not, I have learned very significantly from your awesome presentation. That was a clear, precise, and powerful set of strategies which you have shared with us, Ms. Taj, about childhood education principles, the very same that apply to child bringing in general. But I don't want to make personal comments as we only have 10 minutes. Thank you very much again, Ms. Childre Jimenez. But let's go to Orwe Bassam. This is your turn now, Orwe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. My question is for children that are approaching adults and you have challenge in trying to reconciling them back to you, because the principle you have shared now in Africa is a bit different. Mm-hmm. So now I've learned a lot. How do I try to win the children back, which I have not handled properly, following the principle you have shared? How do they regain my trust back because I have similarly looked very harsh, very impolite, like a disciplinarian, like a general, a military general. For having listened to you, I feel I need to win them back using the approach. How can you guide me? Take me through what I should do to win the children back, to gain that trust. Thank you.
That's a very timely question, because even I caught myself in this while I was studying childhood development, and while I was learning the principles, I also caught myself in that moment, and I'm so proud of you for catching yourself as well. Well, it really depends on how old your child is. So if your child would be at the younger ones, for example, 2 to 6 year olds, you can actually just stop, go cold turkey, and do things differently. It might be hard because it's, but it's good that you're catching yourself. It's good that you're aware of what to do and what not to do now. So you catch yourself, you say, hey, just as what we said a while ago, you catch yourself, you say, hey, this is not the way I want to talk to you. This is not the vibe I'm going for. This is not the friendship that I want to build with you. You have to stop this discussion and let's talk later when we can connect heart to heart. With younger children, you can tell them pause, and then you provide their emotional needs first. If they're crying, if they're feeling very angsty, you give them that love, that comfort, and once they feel like it's okay again, if they feel comfortable again, then you address it again. That's what I do with my 18-month-olds in my classroom. Sometimes they do feel angry with me. Like a while ago, we were supposed to go outdoor playground, but then it started raining. And then I said, I was scared that they would have a tantrum because, of course, they're children, right? 18 months. They don't really understand that if it's raining, I mean, why can't we go? Then just be wet, right? But you can't expose them because our classroom has air conditioning. And if we actually do go play in the rain, then it will be cold, right, when they come back. So then I told them, okay, let's go to the gym. But then unfortunately, when he arrived at the gym in our school, it was being used by a different level. And then my child, one of my children, started having a tantrum, rolled on the floor, and wailed his hands. And then, instead of telling him what we're going to do, I mean, going back to the classroom, I had to address that emotional response first. So I had to soothe him. I know you're angry. I will be sad too because we have been looking forward to playground time since early in the morning, and now we cannot. Now I feel so sad too. I feel so angry, and it's okay to be angry, but rolling around and shouting is not okay. So I really looked at my toddler, my toddler student, eye to eye, and I told him, it's not okay. This shouting is not okay. Can you stop now? And they do actually stop. They can understand. They can understand if you say it this way, in a calm manner, in a very calm, in a very prompt, assertive, but still respectful. I didn't shake him or anything. I didn't drag him back into the room. I just let him have that response. I let him, react to it, because that's the way he knows to react. And then stop. You tell him, cannot do this behavior. This is what we will do instead. And then you will see that your child will also pause and have that little moment of thinking that, hey, yeah, this is not okay. I don't see anyone rolling around on the floor. I mean, everyone won't be in the playground, but then it's okay. And then if they're already older, as in they're 9, 7, going 9, 10, 11, 12, you can actually have a sit down talk with them. You can say, you know what, child, I noticed, I don't think we have the best relationship together. I don't think I've heard stories from you the way I think you've been telling stories to your friends or to your uncles and aunts. I don't think we're comfortable that way. Can you tell me, why? This being open to feedback, to being humble in front of your own child, in front of your students, will slowly regain and build their trust towards you. And when they do say something that, oh, because before you kept shouting at me and it really hurt me, and that's why I'm scared of you, then it might be a little flustering to hear that from our own child, from our own student. You might be, hey, that's my way of parenting you. You turned out okay. You're fine. See, it's invalidating the way they felt. So if they tell you this certain instance, you have to validate their response. Like, yeah, I know I did that and it's very hurtful, but I'm sorry. I want to move on. And I want to know how you want me to talk to you. But still in line, not letting them be disrespectful. So now that you've caught your own mannerisms, you also catch theirs. You can tell them, hey, you told me you don't like being disrespected or being shouted at, but you're doing that right now. This is something I want us to move forward from. So we have to stop this. At ages 7 to 12, they are able to understand this one. Some might feel reluctant to do at first. Of course, it is a behavior that has been imbibed in their brains. But if you do it little by little, consistently, with routine, with proper boundaries, I believe you can actually rewire your relationship with the child. I hope that answered your question.
Ahmed Sharif, your question?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Very well.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. My question is around, there's an area you talk about, teach your child how to assess risk. There is one sickness I want to talk about relating to children, autism. Like children that have mental problem, when you are about to take them to with other kids that are normal to playground, how can you teach a child that have mental problem in relation to where you people are going together with the other kids? How can that child be teach and how he can assess that kind of situation? Because some of them, they have the capability of, they can easily forget, and sometimes they are extremely active. Sometimes they are also extremely calm. So I don't know how, if you are a parent, how to treat children like that with other kids.
Oh, all right. Very interesting question. I believe we should treat them according to their intellectual age. There is such, right? So a 7-year-old child with autism might have the thinking capabilities of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And now we talk to them with the level of a 3-year-old. And aside from that, it's not just the child with autism that we should be addressing. If there is a child with autism in the community and you are entering first-hand experience and no one has ever been interacting with a child with autism, well, we connect with the parents of our community, right? We let them know that, hey, I have a child, he has autism, and he's your child's age, but he thinks like a 3-year-old, because that's how he learns right now. That's the way he thinks right now. So is there possible partnerships that we can do so that my child and your child can play safely in the playground together, or can talk and communicate together? For example, in the church, they can sit together in children's Bible church, or that they can actually go on field trips together. Some schools are very inclusive already. They can have children with autism inside the classroom. So you connect also with the adults that are also in charge of that space, because we shouldn't be focusing on the child with autism. We should be focusing also on the people around them that can influence and that have agency of what happens around them, that have more agency with what happens around them. Yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Subuga Herbert, what's your thinking? Subuga? It is your turn, Subuga. We are apparently losing Subuga Herbert.
Hello?
Yes,
Wow.
we are
Are you getting, okay, are you getting me now?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Herbert Nsubuga from Uganda.
Yes.
Go ahead,
First
go
of all,
ahead.
yes, I
We are
want to thank the presenter. I want to thank the presenter for such a wonderful presentation. Mine is a compliment, not a question. I've been so touched in this presentation, especially how to handle our children. I've been touched, especially the area of communication and the approach, whereby parents have to be humble before your child when you're communicating. That has touched me so much. And I think it is so helpful that you go lower than your child so that you can communicate on the same space. So it has touched me and I have liked it, and I believe it can help so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Subuga. We already passed the 10-minute mark that you placed, Taj Jimenez, but if with your permission, let's allow this last question from Sarah Lumbala. And I see also Shigozi Adam with hands up. If you allow those two questions, we will be very happy. Beginning with Lumbala.
Thank you very much. It's not a question really, but it's also a complimentary from Zambia here. I just felt that I'm touched too. I just felt that the same approach, I think we can still use it even to our children, even if they've gone past 7 years, that we can still restore our relationship with our children instead of just letting it go like that. I think the presentation has been very educative. I thank you. It will help us in communicating with our children. Thank you.
Certainly appreciate your thought, Sarah, on this issue. The last question with Shikozi Adam. We are all ears. Shikozi?
Hello.
Hello,
everyone.
Yes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fasin. Thank you, Taj. The presentation was good. I am from Nigeria, actually, and I just want to speak briefly on the cultural differences in raising children, so to say. Taj, you did mention that we ought to be below our children in when it comes to child rearing and all of that. But from the cultural background in Nigeria and in Africa, to the extent that I know, children, parents or teachers are not supposed to be under the children, in quotes now. Now, I know that children are meant to be submissive, children are meant to be guided, children are meant to take order, correction, and directives from parents or teachers or adults around them. So if we say, I don't know whether it is meant literally or in practice, that children, we parents or adults ought to be under children. I don't know to what extent. I know that here that children are supposed to, in totality, be obedient. I don't want to use the word subservient, but obedience is demanded of children in the cultural background from which I am speaking. So when you say children should, adults should be under children, would it not come to the extent where children become abusive of this privilege, so to say? So how do we marry these cultural differences when we are trying to raise children in partnership or democratically, as you have just presented? Thank you.
Very lovely question. This is what I said in the beginning, that there might be different cultural differences between you and I, where you teach, where you reside, with how and what is expected of children. Well, this presentation that I just did with you is meant for strong-willed children. So these are children who are already showing a lot of passion, who can present a plan that they want, who are very very strong, very independent. They won't be swayed by any other opinion. So these are a strong-willed child. Well, if in your culture the children are very meek and very obedient, well, to help them be creative and start thinking out of the box, maybe you can start introducing this in very small increments inside your classroom or in your home. So this is not to let your child abuse it, just as what I said a while ago. When they start being disrespectful and feeling like
Wow.
they own the house, you stop them. You stop them, you let them know it's going. You don't like, I don't like where this is going. I can see what's happening. You are trying to you are trying to get a hold of the situation, but I am part of this partnership too. So I should have a say as an adult as well. So even if you want to do this, this is my opinion. Please listen to me as I have listened to you. We have to imbibe this practice to our children, listening. Where will they learn to listen if it doesn't start with us? So you have to show them that you listen. For children who are a little bit meek and quiet and very introverted, well, we give them an extra push, we give them extra options, extra processing before, extra processing after. All right.
Thank you very much again, Ms. Taj Jimenez. Our apology to those of you who still have your hands up, suddenly waiting to ask questions, but we've already passed our allotted time, our schedule for this overall presentation. As a matter of fact, you must have heard the presenter's word about near 20 minutes ago when she said we were gonna be together for another 10 minutes, but we have to a certain extent abuse her willingness to be with us. Something we certainly highly appreciate, Taj Jimenez. Those of you waiting, the best option so far is to watch for another opportunity to have Jimenez back, and she certainly will be, because her presentation has proved to be so outstanding, awesome, phenomenal from all perspectives, that we certainly will again call on her. And please, ladies and gentlemen, be on the watch out to know when Taj Jimenez will be back to talk to us about child education, relationships in general, where sometimes men are so abusive towards women, and vice versa. So those are very important issues, and we certainly will have Ms. Jimenez again with us. Thank you very much once more, Taj. One more thing for those of you who've been so delighted with that presentation and asked to have a video of that presentation. Remember, the recording, the session's been recorded The recording will be sent to you. It will be shared with you at some point, most likely within the next 24 hours. You haven't lost anything at all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to each and every one of you who has taken the time to attend this great session from Lady Taj Jimenez. Thank you very much. You've been really great. That's the word, Taj. Thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to having you very soon again for a similar academic show, so to speak. Thank you.